All right, I will call this meeting of Tuesday, January the 5th to order. We do have a few changes, or two additions, I should say, to our agenda for tonight. The first, we will do at 7A. You have a memo before you, and it is to declare, permission to declare surplus some things in environmental services, but you have the memo there before you. Add that at 7A. And then at 8A, under our COVID current restrictions and guidelines, one of the things that we are going to consider, so we wanted to just add it as an agenda item, is consider extension of outdoor dining permits for those, several of those restaurants. So I just wanted to add that at 8A. We'll talk about a variety of things under that agenda item, but we will have that one addition. So that's two additions, 7A and 8A.
John said he was on the line waiting.
You got him?
We don't see him on our end. He's sending the number, make sure that's right.
Okay, we can go ahead and adopt the agenda if there is a motion to adopt it with those two additions.
He's calling in. He realized he had the wrong number.
He's on somebody else's meeting. Thank you, Mark. There's a motion. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor? We all need to wake up. Any opposed? I know, I'm like, wake up, Robin. All those in order. Okay, John, we got you on there? So, all right, be patient with us. We're trying to get Jason Bailey, and Jason Bailey is on the line. We're trying to
Jason's
get
on.
John Morgan on the line. Has he got it?
I don't think so yet.
Wait another second, and then we'll go ahead without him. Well, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start without John, and, is that John?
I'm sorry, I'm here, yeah.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Well, all we've done so far is adopt the agenda. So I've got a mayor's report for you. It's hard to believe that we are already at our first meeting of this new year. Everybody's getting back to business after the holidays, and things are really picking back up in all of our departments. I do have, and I haven't even gotten to tell the board this, we just got this letter this afternoon, but I have a very important clarification to make on our sales tax numbers, an exciting clarification to make. You know, we received our sales tax numbers December the 15th, and those reflect October's numbers. And our sales tax that we received was $512,195.04. Well, that's down 42% from the previous month and 44% from the same month last year, from October of 2019. Although we know that we should be expecting lower numbers than the previous year, we certainly were not expecting lower numbers than the previous month. So we all kind of scratched our head and said, how could this be? And looked, and no other communities in the state saw this kind of drop, and we knew that we had several things that happened in town that should have given us a solid month. So Jesse Tollison in our city clerk's office went to work and reached out to the Department of Revenue. And you should know that when we ask questions of the Department of Revenue, what we get each month is an amount, okay? Here is your revenues generated, X. You don't have any breakdowns. You don't know what comes from who or who all paid their taxes or who all didn't pay their taxes. So, you never know what an issue could be because you don't have much information to work with. So what we found out is that an internal audit had been done at the Department of Revenue, and they found that there was a business that had been coded for their tax revenues to go to the city of Oxford, and they should have been coded to the University of Mississippi. And that had been going on for 3 years. And so they subtracted it all in 1 month. And so 3 years worth of taxes for, don't know what business it is, but a business that we had been getting credit and we wouldn't have known it because we don't get a list of who we get tax revenues from. So they made that correction. So in the letter that we got from Mark Gibbs, Deputy Director of Sales Tax with DOR, he said the City of Oxford's city diversion payment made on December 9th, 2020 was significantly reduced as the result of audit activity that occurred during the month of November. Absent this audit activity, this payment would have been in line with the city diversion monthly average for Oxford. So what that tells us is, we all just kind of had a pit in our stomach when we saw those numbers and thought, oh no, is this what we've got to look forward to? So I think it is a great relief to us, certainly, and will be to our citizens, that in fact our sales tax numbers were in line with our average month. They don't give us how much they subtracted, they don't give us how much the total would have been, because apparently this is all a huge secret. So we are moving along with what we have and with their word that it will be, it would have been a similar month, and we will report to you as soon as we get our next sales tax revenue payment, which will be the middle of January and will reflect November's numbers. So anyway, good news to start off the meeting. I want to brag on somebody, and I did not tell him I was going to brag on him, so I'm sorry, Ben Raquette, to put you on the spot in the back corner. Ben is our Director of Planning, and the American Planning Association held its annual conference in Oxford the first week of December, and I have it from a very reliable source that although there was a planning committee for this national conference, Ben Raquette pulled this thing off virtually, was the technology mind and the planner behind it, and the people from the conference were so thankful for not only his professionalism, and he also was a presenter, and he also presented the awards and had lots of roles with that conference. But I'm also probably most proud to announce that Ben was also named president of the American Planning Association and will serve for the next 2 years as such. I don't brag on our department heads enough. I think it a lot, and very rarely do I say it publicly, and I should do that more. So I just wanted to tell you all that, Ben, we want you to know how fortunate we are to have your professionalism and your integrity and your work ethic at the City of Oxford in our planning department. And we are so very proud of how you're representing us on a much larger stage. So thank you. All right, so that is it for our mayor's report. I'll ask the board to authorize the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on December 15th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Authorize the approval of all accounts for city departments.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I'll ask you to consider the consent agenda, a very short one tonight.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? We have a retirement resolution for Bill Houston. Is Bill here? Is he in the hall by any chance? No? He's not, okay. Well, we had a little retirement, his department had a retirement celebration for him the other day, and read the resolution at that celebration so that Bill could hear it. And so I'm gonna just ask this board if you all would accept a retirement resolution for William H. Bill Houston.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we are going to discuss our No, we go 7A. At 7A, I'm sorry, I didn't write it down here. Request permission to declare equipment surplus in environmental services and authorize its sale on govdeals.com. You have that memo before you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to 8. Discuss COVID-19 current restrictions and guidelines and the current executive orders. We'll get started with Jimmy giving us some number reports, and we've got quite a bit of information to pass along tonight.
You've got your handout, and it lists the past 13 days with specific counties we've been monitoring. Today's numbers, the state had 1,616 cases with 13 new deaths. Locally, for Lafayette County, we are up to 4,401 total cases. That's 27 new cases today. Our 7-day average of new cases sits at 32.3 cases, which puts us at 61st in the state, which is pretty good. We're having an incident rate of 59.8 cases per 100,000, whereas our neighboring county, Union County, to the east of us, they are the first in the state with 163 incidences per 100,000.
Wow.
So our measures are having an effect. Unfortunately, we've had several deaths over the past couple of weeks. We're up to 85 deaths total now. And some of those have been coming back as death certificate reviews. So they actually happened several months ago and everything, but they're reviewing every death certificate, and when they find that it was COVID related, then they'll add it to our numbers.
So sometimes when we are reporting on a specific day that there are 2 deaths, the report that Jimmy gets might say a death between November 7th and December 30th. You know, it's not really associated to the day before. So
Correct. Yes.
we're seeing that pretty often right now.
And as of today, right now, we have 314 active cases in Lafayette County.
Okay. I'm going to read you out just a little bit more information that I have numbers-wise and get Jimmy to hang with us in case anybody has questions. So as of yesterday at Baptist Memorial Hospital, North Mississippi, there were 181 staff beds. There were 44 people in the hospital with COVID, and that has been around 55 to 59 for the past several weeks, so that is a lower number, although Mondays tend to be a lower number for us. So they had 46 regular hospital beds, staffed beds available as of yesterday. In the ICU, they have 24 total staffed beds. They had 7 yesterday that were COVID patients in ICU and had 9 ICU beds available. We are still told that they are not turning anyone away from the emergency room, and that if you have any need to go to the hospital, please go. Vaccinations are a question that we have been getting nonstop on every city hall line today and Jimmy's cell phone. And as many of you probably know, the governor announced in his press conference yesterday that if you are 75 and older, that you will be able to get vaccinations next week. So I've got a little clarification on exactly how that works, because we've gotten phone calls from people all day long wanting to know when they could come up and get their vaccination. Well, you'll be glad to know I won't be issuing those, but we have a little bit more information. This week, the Department of Health is partnering with University of Mississippi Medical Center to provide free COVID vaccinations for healthcare workers, anyone that works in doctor's offices, pharmacies, from the front desk to the back, okay? So that is what this week was set aside for, was people who are exposed directly or indirectly to COVID-19 in a clinic. So these would not be people that work at the hospital, but people that work in other clinics, dentist offices, pharmacists, those kinds of things. My understanding, I did speak with Thomas Dobbs, our director of our Mississippi Department of Health, this afternoon, and he shared with me that they had 10,000 appointments available at 18 different drive-through vaccination places across the state. For this week, they had 10,000 appointments available for these healthcare workers. They were all taken. Next week, they have 3,500 appointments still available. And so beginning tomorrow, if you're 75 or older, you can go to, make sure I get the website right.
Yep.
You can go to covidvaccine.umc.edu. And you will have to go through a registration process. You have to have an appointment to get it. Now, that's $3,500 for the state of Mississippi next week, you understand. So that it's not, and I'm not trying to downplay the governor's excitement that the vaccines will start next week. I am thrilled that they are starting, but you cannot go to any clinic in town and get the vaccination 75 and older next week. You can't, you can't go to the hospital and get it if you're 75 and older. These vaccinations will be given at 18 locations that you can find on the Mississippi Department of Health website, and then you can, if you're 75 or older, try to secure one of the 3,500 appointments for next week that are available. Is that
That's correct.
a fair assessment? Okay, so, anyway, but I think hopefully the next week there will be even more, and we'll keep going, but we just have gotten bombarded with phone calls today of people ready to get their vaccinations, and I agree, and I am so thankful that vaccinations is what we're talking about now.
Yes.
So, praise the Lord, that's what we're talking about. So, Jimmy, anything to add on the vaccinations? You want to kind of go through what the levels, 1A, 1B?
Yeah, they started with the established medical facilities, the hospitals and long-term care facilities. Then they moved down to the other medical personnel. That's what they're doing this week. Then it moves to the 75, I think it's the 1B2 or 1B1, to the 75 and older age group and first responders. Now, we have not got any word before we start getting phone calls about how they're going to deal with first responders. But that's in the same age group as the 75 year and above. The next tier will be 16 to 65 year olds that have medical conditions that are at risk and everything. So if you'll go to the Mississippi Department of Health website, the tiers are laid out and it tells you who's in what tier. The state is following the CDC guidelines on the tiers and everything, is what we're being told. So either the CDC, you can look at their site, or the Mississippi Department of Health website, and you can see an approximate timeline. Now, that timeline is based on us getting the vaccine in the state. People need to understand this, is if there's a delay with it coming into the state, then there'll be a delay on the vaccinations.
Any questions that y'all have that you've gotten from constituents that?
When can they go online to sign up for
They can go
75 and old?
Tomorrow is what Dr. Dobbs told me. Healthcare providers can go on today.
And
But
tomorrow.
he said that the website would be adjusted starting tomorrow morning at that covidvaccine.umc.edu site, so that in the morning, right now when you go to it, I went through it and clicked through the information and did not make an appointment. I just pretended to be a healthcare provider until I got to the last page. But we wanted to put out some type of notice to our citizens of, if you're 75 or older, this is how you apply. But we know that as soon as we post that, we'll start getting the phone calls of, wait, it's not, their site's not working, or what have you. So I wanted to go through it one time to be sure that it was set up that way. And as of right before the meeting, 75 and older was not an option. It was only healthcare provider. So we will wait until we see, before we post something with information tomorrow, we'll make sure that we have checked, and you can do that at 75 or older. But it's a super easy, click through a few pages to sign up to get one. It's super easy.
I'll check it first thing in the morning to see if they've got it changed, and then I'll notify y'all.
And
So
then
y'all
Kara
can-
has a graphic ready for us to post with Department of Health phone numbers and all that kind of thing, so that we can get that information out to everybody. One other thing, and I think, anybody else have a question for Jimmy? Okay, thank you, Jimmy. The next thing we need to talk about is our sign ordinance. We didn't bring that up again at our last meeting. We had said that we were not going to begin enforcing it until the first of the year, and here we are at the first of the year. So I just wanted to see what y'all's feelings were on the sign ordinance and people getting back to normal on that kind of thing.
I would ask probably to go another month at least, just to kind of see where we're going with these vaccines, see where our future is headed before we start making decisions on pulling back.
Yeah, I agree. If it's helping the businesses, then we
Absolutely.
should extend it a month or two, maybe 2 months.
Yes.
Well, let's,
2 months is good.
somebody want to make that in the form of a motion?
I'll make a motion that we extend the sign ordinance relaxation for another couple of months, 2 months.
Okay, so until,
March 30th? No, yeah.
yeah, we could review it again first meeting in
Yeah.
March. That's a good
And
idea.
we can extend it again if we need to. Yeah.
Okay, Hollis, Ben, that gives some direction of where we'll go. So we have a motion that we extend the relaxing of the sign ordinance regulations until the first meeting in March. It will be considered again. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so then I think the last thing under COVID restrictions is what we'll consider at 8A. Bart, you want to come up and handle that one? Considering the execution of, our extension of the executed contracts on dining.
Consider the extension of the outdoor dining license. And just before the meeting, we put a resolution on your table, or handed you a resolution. And the modification in it is to allow us to have to go month by month. It renews every month unless you make an action to change it, is the way we're wording the resolution and the way we're wording the draft lease or license that you have in front of you. I know we've had 2 calls from restaurants that are currently using it that want to continue using it. I believe we currently have 5 restaurants still using the outdoor dining, Proud Larry's, St. Leo's, Funky's, Roosters, and the Blind Pig. And so that's what we're here, is just to ask if you would like to extend it. I know from conversations with one alderman earlier today, they would like to extend it for a couple months. I know I've had other conversations where we just wanted to do it a month at a time, and this gives you both options. It sets it automatically renews every month until you decide to change it. So.
That sounds good. So will the restaurants, will they do it by the month? Will they pay their fee each month?
That's how we've done it so far.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
each
We've actually sent them an invoice, an email invoice or a reminder, and they just come in and pay Ashley's office every month. Of course, remember, nearly the first full 2 months were paid for by the donations of citizens, and then, but it is at the
And-
regular price now of like $384.50, $384.80 a month, something like that.
Yeah. Remember that, I brought this up at the last meeting, but just to give y'all a quick update, and you do have some information there. I know that most all of us, if not all of us, would like to consider seeing outdoor dining become a year-round thing. It will take some infrastructure improvements for that to happen in a way that I think that we all would be proud of year-round. So we have been meeting quite a few department heads together for the past couple of months, coming up with some options and some costs and what different phases would look like. And our goal is to call a meeting of our downtown business owners in the next 2 weeks, probably next week is what we're hoping for, and get some feedback from them. And then we will have our January work session on January the 25th. And at that work session, we will come with drawings, prices, input from our downtown businesses, and, you know, so that we've got enough information together to really make some headway on moving forward. But I am super excited seeing the plans that are being generated, and I think you will be too. So we'll see if our businesses are excited about it. I've heard from quite a few that are, but that are excited that we're talking about it, but we will, we'll get some more feedback on that. Bart, is there anything? I guess we need a motion to extend.
Motion on adopting this resolution, which extends the outdoor dining license.
Second.
All right, any questions or comments? All in favor, any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Y'all were slow. Any opposed? That's right. Okay.
Word in between.
That's right. Thank y'all. All right, next we have a public hearing and consideration of a resolution determining the necessity for and invoking the authority granted to municipalities by the legislation with respect to tax increment financing as set forth in section 2145-1. As amended, determining that the tax increment financing plan for the Lamar, City of Oxford, Lafayette County, Mississippi, December 2020, proposes a project that is eligible for tax increment financing under the laws of the state, that a public hearing be conducted in connection with the aforementioned tax increment financing plan and for related purposes.
I'll start by saying 9, 10, and 11 on your agenda
Are all-
are all included in this same item. a couple of things that this resolution does, it does set a public hearing for January the 19th for the TIF plan, so that's where the formal adoption of the TIF plan would happen. The thing that I think the board needs to discuss, and the way we've kind of left it, is what is the not to exceed amount of the TIF? I know that what they presented a few weeks ago was $2.9 million, and then there's a list of infrastructure improvements on page 3 of the TIF plan that actually spells out what that 2.9 would encompass, and that included their Main Street, the roadway and utility infrastructure, the improvements on North Lamar, including the traffic signal, the Malabar roundabout, the North Lamar sidewalk, the Chickasaw Road sidewalk with lighting along the rights of way. Through some conversations, they were, I'm gonna say it was recommended that they reduce that. They came back with a $2.4 million option that would get the roundabouts on Malabar and the intersection on North Lamar part of it. And then I think even from other conversations, there's a minimum piece that's about $1.5 million not to exceed amount that would just do the roundabout on Malabar. So that's kind of where the discussions that I've had have went, and we just need direction from you on how you want to proceed.
Or I'd like to make one comment.
Can Chris come up there?
Yeah, Chris, come on up.
And it might be the comment he's making as we move forward. Remember, still, we're in draft mode
Right.
with this whole thing, so we're just making the next step.
We set the ceiling tonight,
Right.
and then when we do the TIF plan, we could go down from this ceiling when we adopt the TIF plan in 2 weeks.
Correct. The plan is draft. Ultimately, after you take public comment and then any additional thoughts from board members, we can make adjustments downward. And even once the TIF plan is approved, it is a statement of intent that establishes the TIF district and sets the upper limit on bonds. Ultimately, there'll be a development agreement that follows, and that development agreement is really the agreement with the developer where the representation and warranties are between Updraft, Max Entity, and the city that can even more clearly define exactly what money can be used for.
Right.
I'll tell you, typically, when we're at this point in discussion with the city, we've already got this stuff ironed out when we get to this point with the holidays and the constraints we got, and communicate, getting here a little bit. We're not all the way finished with those discussions, but the plan ultimately is not final until it's adopted. And I would like to ask for one clerical correction. It says 2020 on it, December 2020. I'll make appropriate adjustments to reflect January 21 on all time,
Okay.
if the board is inclined to consider it.
With this being a draft and as we're moving forward, I would make the motion that we proceed with the 2.9 TIF plan at this time and make adjustments. And if you have questions on it.
Is it 2.9 or 2.4?
2.9 is the list that I read
the
out to
highest.
you. The 2.4, the 2.4 only included the roundabout on North Lamar, on Malabar, and the intersection of North Lamar.
Okay.
No,
The
That's all
2.9,
So if I could ask a question,
sure, go
this
ahead.
is only not to,
Not-
this is only not to exceed amount, so, we can look at what they have and still cut back things, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes, we can, John, but we've, I think this is our third trip trying to nail down what we're ultimately trying to get to. And so let me clarify one more time. The 2.9, if you went to full amount on the 2.9, that is the Main Street, which is the street through the Lamar development, and then that includes the roadway and the utility infrastructure. So these are items that they would be able to request reimbursement for.
Right.
The improvements to North Lamar Boulevard, including the traffic signal, the Malabar Road roundabout, the North Lamar sidewalk, which goes from about Price Street to about the southern entrance into the Lamar, the Chickasaw Road sidewalk improvements, which did leave a gap there where those 6 houses existed on Chickasaw, and with the lighting along those public roads. That's the ceiling. That's what the ultimate 2.9 would give you, and you can go down from any combination from there.
So do we have,
So how,
go ahead, John.
No, I was just gonna ask, I don't understand, you said a North Lamar sidewalk from Price Street?
It did go from Price, and that's part of your plan. If you look, well, yeah, you got it. If you look at the red line on the very last page of your packet,
Okay,
you'll see where that's the sidewalk that's
So it goes from
contemplated.
Price Street and stops at his development.
You know what would be helpful to me, maybe to some of the others, if we, what you just said, if we could just have a list that's not embedded in this big resolution that we're looking at, just a list, if you could email it to us of what things are included with the 2.9 million.
I can do that, and it's in paragraph form, but it is on page 3 of that TIF plan.
Yeah,
Which is the attached Exhibit A. So if you get to this page in your packet, and
page
then go to
3.
the bottom of page 3.
And I may have been off when we talked about it, but I thought that we were looking at sidewalks to go all the way around the other end when we were talking in our board meeting the last time. I thought we were talking about, I didn't ever picture Price Street to Lamar. I was picturing Lamar the other way around the whole development when I was, did anybody else picture it that way, or was I just off?
2 or 3 meetings ago when we talked about it, I was under that same impression.
Okay, that, in my mind, we were making. I did, and down Molly Bar and then down Chickasaw. You know, I mean, I was thinking that way rather than Lamar back to Price. Was I the only one thinking that?
And I think we can
You
look
thought
at
that
that.
too?
no, I was thinking that too, but also, am I looking at this right, that the actual sidewalks turn at the Lamar and go back there around it?
Yes, I think. It
Well,
stops
they're
at the
required to
Lamar.
build sidewalks inside their development, but
That's what I was gonna say, I thought they were required to build that anyway.
the TIF reimbursements for the sidewalks would be only the pieces on Chickasaw and the piece on Lamar
Okay.
That are red.
that are red, correct?
And then Bart, there's things in here that are new that I don't believe we've talked about, that talk about surface parking, repaving and other related parking lot upgrades. That's what's confusing me. There's so many items here that I don't remember us discussing at all.
I remember that being in our last TIF plan also. I think it's
Go ahead. I think that's statutory language. I don't think that is.
It's pretty broad. Our thought process, and these draft documents have been around for a little while, but our thought process, much like y'all consider a bond resolution where you
It's
might
broad,
have
yeah.
four projects, but you kind of put a broad description of what money can be used for. Our thought process here was the monies, when and if issued, would first pay the city's issuance costs, so there'd be a priority. The city's issuance costs, debt service reserves, if any, and then these specific line items that are then enumerated, and if there's any money left over, if we beat the budget, that we have an opportunity to recover some other eligible expenses if there were any left over. Is why it's drafted the way it is.
Yeah, okay.
So I have a question, so on this Main Street, that I'm looking at here, what are we gonna be reimbursing on Main Street, like as far as infrastructure improvements to, when you say Main Street, is that the Main Street in the Lamar?
Yes, sir. It is the main street inside of Lamar. If you approve it, that would, and it is an item that is allowed under the TIF statute, but if you approve it, it would allow them to request reimbursement for that main street through the development.
and to bring
Through our financing, through our tax increment financing, okay.
Yes, sir.
And what, could somebody like, separate out the cost of that Main Street from the 2.9 million?
I can.
Roughly,
That is about 390.
390,000.
say that again.
390,000.
Okay,
I guess as we look forward, remember, this is a draft, this is giving you your max out tonight, and if we get down into the nitty-gritty, you can start pulling things out.
okay.
But when
and
do we do,
rearranging that.
when do we do that, I guess is my question. I mean, I thought that's what Chris is at, and Maybe I'm off base here. I thought that's what you wanted us to do tonight. You said we hadn't gotten down to the.
Well, I would
finer-
prefer for it to be done tonight. I don't know, I think Chris is good waiting until
Yeah, I thought we
next
were
meeting.
doing that tonight. I'm sorry.
You know,
I mean,
at the mid-December meeting, we had a lot of this conversation, not as in-depth as we're having it right now.
right.
But December 11th, we sent a letter that kind of said option A or B, based on feedback we had from your office and several aldermen. And we left out of here with, let's go with B, 2.9. And I really personally thought we were a little bit past this, but I respect that we don't have all the feedback right now.
Yeah.
I'm happy to leave tonight with a good understanding.
And we can easily push it, I mean, that's right, we could, I mean, if, you don't, I guess you're not required to make a decision on tonight, it just makes it easier for us to move forward if you did.
If you already, I guess my point was if we already have input or things that people are concerned about, I think we should say it now so that we can start moving forward with it rather
Right.
than, otherwise we're no further along right this minute than we were before we started this agenda item.
Yeah.
But I guess what I was saying is, as we're bringing this forward, instead of going at, well, that road costs $320,000, I don't know that we've got an engineering figure, I'm just picking a number now, I don't remember what Bart said. We can give these to them and say, bring us back the cost. We're not going above 2.9, but when we get a full list of all of our questions tonight answered, at that point, you can tail it down. I'm more, yes,
But
I want to bring
guess,
everything out.
I
Yes.
guess the way I'm thinking about it is we're saying we won't go, you give us what you can do for 2.9. I feel like they've already done that.
They have.
So
And here's,
what do we, you know, we went back and forth at the last meeting. I felt like talking about how can we add things that are beneficial to all of our citizens?
Yeah.
Since all the citizens will be paying this, you know, we're making this decision based on the taxpayers of Oxford paying for these infrastructure improvements, which I think is very critical
I
for us
agree.
to make sure that they are benefiting all the citizens that are paying for those infrastructure improvements. At the Molly Bar Roundabout, I 110% believe that is a great benefit to getting traffic around our community, but that's 1.9 million?
1.339, right at 1.3.
$1.3 million. But that, to me, I think everybody agreed, if I'm not mistaken, tell me if I'm wrong, that everybody's 100% in on the roundabout. From there, I felt like we had lots of different feelings on Main Street and I guess I'm the goofball that thought the sidewalks went the other direction instead of back towards Price. Probably in much of a cost difference. I mean, it's so extensive down to Price, I don't know. But I don't know what the terrain is and the whatever, but I just think we need to go ahead. I don't want to put y'all out another 2 weeks for us to come back and have that discussion if people already know.
But Mayor, if I could, I think what Rick's trying to say is that if we say 2.9, we don't know what these things are going to come in at, and that we still have an opportunity to cut out Main Street and other stuff if we just, because what we're talking about is an amount that we're willing to go and not go over, even though I know that it's at $390,000 for Main Street sounds like a lot, but the truth of the matter is these sidewalks cost a lot more money than I think that we're saying right here, especially on Chickasaw and the ones that where I see it's going to have to go. So, you know, I'm good either way, but I do have questions about things that are going to happen inside the development.
Well, and I guess I think of it opposite of that. I think I'm not good with 2.9 unless I know what the 2.9 is. You know what I'm saying? Like you're saying, if we're good with 2.9,
will
then
know.
we'll see what it
We
is.
will know.
I don't know if I'm good with 2.9 because I need to see what all is 2.9.
And I
I'm not sure I'm not either. I just am.
But you're 3 meetings away from making final decisions. You're gonna pass a resolution at a max out today, and the next resolution will bring you back whatever questions you're asking tonight, or not the next resolution, but the next meeting would bring you back whatever questions you're asking tonight and a public hearing to listen to what the neighbors have to say. And then we'll have the next meeting to make that decision on which way we go. I mean, I guess I look at it as, give me the whole thing and then let's hear from people and let's hear from other developers or whatever, and then make a decision at your next public hearing meeting.
But what about some of the things that we have questions about or we're not sure are
Right.
appropriate? Can these items be prioritized?
I think they can.
so that you know, you don't have to spend the whole 2.9 million on sidewalks, and you decide you're gonna do, when you start running short of money, you're gonna do the Main Street thing and cut some of the sidewalks. It's just, I think they need to be prioritized.
Yes is the answer, and Mayor, being responsive to your thoughts about all the improvements being more accessible, available to the public, I think our draft TIF plan, our letter of December 11th was responsive to that.
I do too.
And it only provides that if we beat the number, there's an opportunity to recover some cost internally. One very important aspect of that.
And that, Ms. Hampton, what that means is you have to get all of these improvements that they list before any of that money is available to them for anything else.
And the draft does prioritize these expenditures,
Okay.
very specifically, throughout it. And there's an opportunity in the development agreement to even be more clear about it. This isn't clear enough after approval of the TIF plan.
Let me run
So,
through this
but
from our.
looking at these sidewalks with the big gaps on Chickasaw and with it ending at the Lamar, and we're talking about this that goes all the way around, I might not be opposed to more than 2.9 if I thought we were getting sidewalks for our citizens that would benefit everybody. I guess that's my point. I'm not trying to knock the number down. I'm just, are we paying for things that are benefiting all of our citizens? And to me, I don't mind it being more than that if we are able to finance infrastructure that would take us another 10 or 15 years to put in. But that, I mean, I thought we were talking about sidewalks around that other end. I would be, yeah, around Molly Bar. And what would it cost to fill in these gaps? I mean, on Chickasaw, to have that big of a gap in the middle of it doesn't really do you that much good. I think I would probably say don't do that if you're gonna do the gap, because what good does that do?
And that could be part of the prioritizing.
Does that make sense? I mean, I don't.
Right.
I'd probably say, don't do that on Chickasaw. Don't go North Lamar all the way to Sis. Let's do that part of Molly Bar that connects to your area, and we have pedestrian traffic and the bike paths and all on Molly Bar. That's where
Well, I may be mistaken, but I believe our code requires that sidewalk on Chickasaw, where they're showing it.
okay.
They're,
What,
Yeah, and that was, why is that, if we require that, why is that part of the TIF?
yeah,
That's-
that's exactly right. That is just the nature of the TIF. That's, I mean, they're asking you, they're asking to use this tax instrument financing to pay for those public infrastructure improvements that are required.
And sir, you said that there is a prioritized list somewhere. I don't see it. I'm sorry. I mean, it may be in here somewhere, but.
It's in that paragraph, it
it's
goes
in
down the
paragraph
list.
form, it's
Yeah.
not in list.
Yeah, it's in that number
It's
3
in
on that
paragraph
page 3.
form. In the,
On page 3 at the bottom, it says the priority of payment for the proceeds from TIF bond shall be as follows. A, first to pay the city's cost of issuance. B, second, to establish any required debt service reserve, and any fund needed for initial payments of principal and interest. Third, for these 6 items we've been talking about. And then fourth, if any proceeds were remaining, then any other legal eligible expenses could be recovered.
And most of the things, and like Pope said, that is the purpose of a TIF, is to reimburse a developer to help them go ahead and do a development that is going to produce great tax revenues for the city of Oxford. But a lot of the things that we're talking about are things that would be required in order to do it. The roundabout, he could come up with a different way than doing the roundabout. The roundabout, to me, is something that we need and is the perfect project for a TIF. So all of the other things, not opposed to them, but I just would rather give y'all a heads up tonight if anybody has hesitation than wait 2 more weeks to say that.
And I can run through these costs real quick. At the last meeting in December, when we presented this under option 2, the roadway and utility infrastructure, that's the Main Street, that was $390,000, and I should have provided this for you
so
again
is that
tonight.
priority 1? I mean, this.
That is number 1 in their list of infrastructure.
Okay.
North Lamar Boulevard improvements with traffic signal, traffic lights, that's $305,000. The Malabar roundabouts is $1,339,000.
Right.
The North Lamar sidewalk improvements were $274,000, and the Chickasaw Road sidewalk improvements were $92,000. Lighting was an additional $100,000,
Okay.
and that's where that was their total estimate from the last meeting.
Okay, well, thank you. I didn't realize those were in priority order. but,
Mayor, if I may make one.
Sure.
I think important comment for the board's consideration. Procedurally, assuming the city approves the TIF plan, enters into a development agreement with Updraft, they've got to go out and finance all this infrastructure, build it, put it in service. They then got to develop the private aspects that generate the taxes that will be utilized to pay back the bonds, which a portion will be used to reimburse for these improvements. If his costs exceed the number, that's his risk. There's a hard cap on what he can be reimbursed.
right.
If he doesn't create enough private development to create the taxes, he won't get all the bonds, may not get any of the bonds. So there's a lot of risk on Updraft from the point of the approval, and it's only after these improvements are done to city code and standard, and after the taxes are generated in an amount sufficient, that we be back here asking the city to issue bonds.
Infrastructure has to be there, taxes have to be realized, and then we can issue the bonds.
I pulled up that letter that Mark read from the 15th, we talked about last time, and I mean, we were all comfortable with last time at 2.9. I think the question is, it wasn't real specific on the Lamar sidewalk improvements. That's all it said. I think that's something we can be more specific on, of where we want those improvements.
And now you have a drawing in part of that TIF plan that shows where they're proposing them, and you can obviously,
Well, and I see someone raising their hand in the back, and we did advertise this as a public hearing, so I'm gonna allow you to speak if you wanna say something. If you'll come identify yourself and say,
And there will be another public hearing before we pass this out.
Thank you. My name's Dick Dickerson,
uh-huh,
and first I'd like to say that I think that TIFs, when used in the right way, are beneficial and good for our community, and I think the Lamar is a nice concept. But my reason for being here is to question the use of $2.9 million of Oxford and Lafayette County tax revenues to finance a roundabout, streets and infrastructure construction, lighting, traffic lights, sidewalks, when most of these costs, other than the roundabout, are normal costs incurred by a developer when they undertake a project like this. And basically, I think it's a stretch to call the Lamar a redevelopment project for TIF purposes, since it's been in the works since February of 2017. It's not a redevelopment. Rather, it's a commercial venture that has been in existence over 4 years. And phase 1 and 2 were approved to begin construction back in 2017. And there's been virtually nothing done in phase 1. I wonder why. And I wonder why tax revenues should be used for a commercial project that's already in existence. And I know you mentioned that you think a roundabout is a very good thing, but I question that in that it's supposed to be an improvement, and certainly it can be, but it seems that a roundabout is going to impede flow of traffic on Molly Bar, and rather than improve it, and there's minimal cross traffic from Chickasaw. There are some other considerations in that you've got the entrance to Highland Square, 50 to 100 yards west of the roundabout. Have you considered what the probable usage of Stillhouse Road, I think Main Street, as a cut through from Molly Bar to North Lamar? If I wouldn't go up to Highway 30 intersection. I'd be cutting through the development. And what traffic impact studies have been done regarding the roundabout? I don't know.
I'll let Bart speak to, a lot of the things you're referring to as opinion are engineering decisions. So I often think a roundabout's a great solution because I'm told so by a traffic engineer. And they do seem to work, and they have reduced our traffic accidents, and they have our traffic accidents, and they have also improved traffic flow in a whole lot of areas. So I don't think I agree on moving traffic and that helping traffic flow, but I also would say, and we'll have to look at traffic study numbers to answer it, but I certainly, from my driving through there, would not say there's no cross traffic or little cross traffic from Chickasaw. I think it's pretty heavily traveled and
I've sat out
an
there a
issue.
number of times and just watched, and there's very little cross traffic. And I may have been there at the wrong time, granted, but the traffic flows perfectly well in Molly Bar as far as it appeared to me. But if the traffic studies say it's needed, I think that would be great. TIF is a great use of money for a roundabout. I live in Oxford Commons, and we did 3 roundabouts with TIF money over there. And I think that has proved that it was well worth it at that point, but it was needed. There were traffic studies that pointed out that it was needed. Another concern I have is the traffic lights at North Lamar. There was an impact study done back in February of 2017 that said signalization was not warranted until phase 1 and 2 were completed. So what's changed in 2021 that makes that a necessity? And looking through at the projections for increases in sales taxes, I wonder what letters of intent or commitments have been received from commercial businesses to locate there. Otherwise, you're not going to have the sales tax rebates to pay for these bonds.
Well,
And so
that will
those-
be the developer's issue, so we trust that he has that lined up.
So all the front money comes out of his pocket, and until the taxes are recognized, before he
He's
gets
not,
paid
no
anything
money
back.
is paid back, so that's
But
one
it has to be paid back.
by the developer.
No, we don't pay
We're not
anything
on the
back
line.
until it's, until,
Borrow the money until the tax.
But, okay, but the taxes are being put into a fund and it cannot be used for anything else
I don't
until
think that's right, is it?
you start paying it. So you're not having the money available for other uses. But those are some of the concerns I have. And that's, in general, I'm not a real TIF kind of guy. The way the law is written, I think it's been perverted from taking blighted areas and underserved areas and making them income producing. I don't see that as happening in this regard, so,
Well, we very much appreciate
My
you coming to
opinion.
share your opinion.
thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll try to address those maybe in
Yeah, I
reverse
was
order.
going to say, if you can address
some
some of the
I may have had some help from
engineering-related
Brianna.
items, I would greatly appreciate it.
On the traffic signal from North Lamar, I'm sure he's right. I'm sure the traffic impact study said that the traffic signal wasn't needed till phase 1 and 2 were completed. This TIF sets forth either 10 or 15 years of performance. So we do anticipate that phase 1 and 2 are completed in that period of time. As far as the roundabout, when we looked at, we've got 5 roads coming in at a very close proximity. You got 2 legs of Chickasaw, 2 legs of Molly Bar, and then the leg out of the Lamar. Quite honestly, the roundabout is one of the simplest ways to handle those 5 legs coming in all at one place. We initially had told the developer that we had to move that road out of the Lamar as far to the east as you can move it to stay away from Chickasaw. That didn't work for him. So when we try to get it close to Chickasaw, this is one of the ways to be able to make it function properly. I'm not sure if the traffic impact study addressed a roundabout or how the traffic impact study, or even if it was considered as part of that, or if additional traffic impact studies have considered it. And then, just as you discussed on the TIF funds, the money from the taxes are not going in a separate fund. They're not there. They're not there until the development performs and those taxes are there, and we have a full year of those taxes, full year to measure those taxes, so we can issue the bonds that those taxes will eventually make the debt service on.
Correct, and one point I'd like to make about the discussion of redevelopment projects. The TIF statute defines projects, and it clearly includes redevelopment and development. And, there's a wide use throughout the state of both greenfield developments and redevelopment projects. So from a legal perspective, I defer to folks, but this type of project is fairly allowable in the law.
Yeah, the Oxford Commons TIF was not a redevelopment, it was a development. wasn't it?
It was, and I understand all of your points that you raised and appreciate them. I think that this board is charged with determining, is this the best way to spend tax money that will be generated from that development? I mean, is this a thing that is beneficial to the citizens of Oxford? And so that's what this board has to decide. I mean, that's where we are.
And what tax monies will be generated after this project is done.
Right, yeah, that's important.
So, I mean,
And jobs and,
your investment of 2.9 million in infrastructure brings about X amount, and that's in the development somewhere, I read that, but I don't remember the numbers, but it's what you look at.
So what is the board's pleasure?
Hey, I got one more question, Mayor. So Bart, on that roundabout, and I'm a big fan of, I'm not saying we need a roundabout at Molly Bar and Chickasaw, but we definitely need a different intersection because of the danger of trying to turn left, coming either way because you can't do it and people going around but what would be the traffic study, like if the Lamar did not have to be on that roundabout, would that place warrant a roundabout?
I don't believe so. If we weren't looking at the development and the potential traffic out of the Lamar, I think we would leave just a simple stop on Chickasaw and the through traffic on Molly Bars that exist. I don't know that we've analyzed it that way, but that's, we know that it's functioned pretty well for several years.
But we have approved commercial
Okay.
development in the Lamar NRT&D. So, I mean, something's got to come out of there somewhere.
With the traffic generated by
True.
Lamar, I believe this is the best way to handle it.
I'm gonna make a motion to proceed with the 2.9 and ask if the developer will come back. I see his figures for the North Lamar sidewalk, if he will reverse that sidewalk and come back with a price to go the other way, just to kind of give us some options on which way we could go.
So when you say the other way, just to be clear, from the southern entrance of the
phase two,
Lamar all the
right.
way around to Chickasaw?
Correct. At least that would give us a price standpoint of which way the sidewalk could go.
And that was not to exceed 2.9.
Not to exceed 2.9, and change the 2020 to 2021, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Are there any more comments or questions?
Well, I just want to make sure that this is still not a vote on the approval of the TIF. This is just to not to exceed amount.
Correct.
All right, so a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So what do we do for 10 and 11?
Nothing.
Okay, got it.
That was,
Yes, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Matt. All right. Number 12, request permission to advertise for bids for the annual electrical distribution contractor services. Mr. Neely?
Hello, this item gives Oxford Utilities permission to advertise and seek bids for our annual contractor services. We, in the past, have used DeSoto County Electric, and their contract expired November 30th. And so we would like to get someone under contract for time and equipment. Pricing is what they provide us with, and we evaluate to determine the low bidder. And then we can use that contractor for jobs that come up for our overhead to underground conversions and things like that we've got in our budget, so.
move we approve the advertising for annual bids.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you, Rob. And Chief McCutcheon, we will have presentation of the OPD annual report.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I won't go through the entire report. You guys have a copy of it, but I would like to highlight a couple things that, you know, in the crazy year that we had, we still were able to get a large number of community service events out there. We were able to keep our CALEA status intact. We had an employee, Valerie Booth, go through the FBI's Victims Advocacy Program, and so now we have her in our department when we have a victim of a crime, that we can work with them hand in hand from the time the call goes out until that criminal case is finished. We also kicked off our Off the Beat podcast, which is kind of a dual role. It gives us a way to do training and not send that training out, and so it's not costing the city money to send officers out, but it's also not costing the city money to have officers attend training. They can do this at home, they can do it while they're on their 12-hour shift, which has been a big plus for us. And then obviously the Commission on Police Transparency kicked off this year, so a lot of good things that we were able to do in a very unique year, and we're proud of those achievements. Any questions on the data?
Well, it's great data, and I want the public to know that
It is.
this was attached to our agenda, I believe, yes. And I posted it on our social media with a year-end report of all the things that have taken place over the past 12 months in Oxford. I posted a link to this document, but I just want to say thank you to you for, our goal has been, and Chief and I have talked about this for the past 2 years, how can we be the most transparent with our community? Many things that we hear raised as issues are, or people say, we wish you would do this, and we're thinking, we've been doing it for 2 years, but we just haven't told our story well. We just haven't put it out there that we're doing it very often. We already have policies in place that people are proposing, or we're already collecting data on different things so that we know where we need to improve and where we're doing well and that kind of thing. So we have talked about it for 2 years, and this is a wonderful report, and it's a gift to our community to be able to really dig into the data and for us to show them that we are being as transparent as we can possibly be. So any particular data, Chief, that you want to? Traffic citations certainly have gone down over the past 5 years.
I think one of the brighter points of some of the data was, and I'll have my numbers off a bit, but I think it was 185 auto burglaries and 145 arrests. Which is just incredible, and that's the work of every staff member and every detective working together we caught, I want to say, 5 cases in the act of multiple burglaries. And that's very hard to do, and so very proud of them.
Narcotics arrests are down as well.
Yeah, alcohol-related arrests. Especially this last year, they're down. I think a lot of people staying at home has really helped.
Sure. But it has.
Well, but you'll see on the other trend of that, assaults, domestic assaults really went up this year. This is the first year that we began to track our mental calls. And so now we'll have some data with that this year, and we'll be able to look at what that looks like moving forward. And really have to brag on Communicare and the partnership that we've had with them this year. Anytime we've called them, no matter the time, they've came to the scene and worked with us to help resolve that situation, which has just been incredible.
And you see,
Good info. Thanks, Jeff.
towards the end, you can see that they've done 3,737 business checks, 6,845 and a half total department training hours. They've had 143 mental health calls this year. They've done 635 foot patrols, 8,644 extra patrols, 269 felony arrests, and they have done phone call follow-ups for 1,431 cases. That's a whole lot of work, a whole lot of hours put in, especially when you consider the community service that is put in on top of those hours. So Jeff, we thank you and your staff so much for all you're doing for the community.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody have any questions for him? All right.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Then next on our agenda is to request permission for the Oxford Police Department to apply for the Walmart Community Grant in the amount of $2,000 for 2021.
This is a no-match grant. We get to apply for it every year, so with the new year rolling in, we went ahead and put in for that.
Motion made.
Second.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Request permission for the mayor to sign towing service rotation agreements between the City of Oxford and Chandler Towing and the City of Oxford and Shivers Towing. Chief?
This is the contract we presented a few weeks back. We had our board assembled, and the recommendation will be Shivers and Chandler Towing to become the two tow companies for our city.
I move that we approve both.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Request permission to accept the donation of a vehicle from the Oxford Housing Authority.
This is a 2006 Ford F-150. They're donating it to us. We'd love to have it, and essentially we'll use that downtown mostly to pull our downtown trailer and use it on recruitment trips and things such as that.
Great.
Motion made to accept.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Chief. Seth, discuss the moving of all Oxford Park Commission administrative personnel.
Yes, ma'am. December the 9th, OPC board voted 4-0 to start transitioning the OPC administrative staff, so everybody that y'all would see in the main office over into the old activity center. They asked me to lay out a plan of how we would put people in the facility and move folks around. What this would do is the current dance room would turn into a bunch of cubicles to put 5 staff members, with the additional space being used for interns or anything else that we would have in there. So it'd basically be an open space with some cubes there to put that staff there. Move other folks around, but there's got to be some renovation in the building to be able to handle that. And so we went out and got cost, and I think there was a cost included, but it comes out to around $17,000, $18,000 worth of improvements to the building that we would need to do to be able to do that. And it's laid out, and $8,000 to $10,000, somewhere close to that, $8,000 to $10,000 is technical between internet or telephones and stuff like that to be able to accommodate staff. What would be left at the building over here off of 15th Street right now would be maintenance for the time being, because we don't have anywhere else to put them.
Seth, this is the old activity center, because it says Stone Park Activity Center. I was confused.
Well, it's, to me, maybe when I typed that up, I just considered that's all in Stone Park. Yeah, it's the old activity center, yes, ma'am.
Okay, are you all not going to use that for basketball? Wasn't that one of the things that we approved?
Yes, I mean, so we're putting people in the dance room.
Okay, so it's just going to be the dance room?
Correct, and part of the improvements is to take part of the old gymnastics room in the back behind the LLO room, and put flooring down there to move the dance room there. So basically, we'd be going in that room, moving our people into a 1,200 square foot dance room that we're currently occupied. And when we put the flooring down, laminate, so when we open up for classes, that'll be around 1,600 square feet. So we'll be changing a dance room from 12 to 16, doing everything temporary. I know the goal at some point in the future is to try to get another facility over there for the staff to be in around that area. So it would just be temporary changes, and then we would open that dance room back up again for another classroom.
Okay, Mayor, Keisha and I were talking about this. When we have our work session in January, can we kind of summarize and get an update on these moves of different departments to buildings? I know there's a master plan and.
You mean what our long-range plan is? Yes, I thought you meant ones that have moved. I was like, well, didn't know they moved. Yes, we can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Bart and I have worked on that, and we've got some of those pieces in place, but yes, absolutely.
Because I was just thinking about the time frame here. I just didn't know that it was something that was needed to happen now.
It was brought up, I believe, in November for me to get everything ready, and for them to get them some costs together to vote on in December. To tell you, I was not expecting it until I showed up at the board meeting that day myself.
Okay, and you have the funds to do this?
That OPC Activities Fund, they moved some money around in their activities account to cover the cost needed to do this.
All right.
Okay, so do you want to wait until that meeting to consider this, Janice, when you see the overall plan for city facilities
Not
again, or you wanna?
necessarily. Is this something that's part of that plan?
It was not, our long-range plan, you know, has been to, that police department has outgrown their building, so once we relocated the police department, our goal is to move all of the park commission employees into that facility and be able to use the training facility as well for LLO and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Now, that's not gonna happen in the next 12 months. So, you know, their claim, when I met with several of the board members, is that, you know, they need to do some real upgrades in the building they're currently in.
Right.
That building is,
Maintenance and upgrades, they need
that's right, that's what I mean, some maintenance to that building. And so
they
instead
need
of
to get
spending
out
money on maintenance in that building, they would rather transition this
Okay.
space, was the discussion that we had. And, you know, the goal in getting them to that police department is so that we create a park commission campus.
Right.
And so that they are actually located at the facilities that they are overseeing. And so, you know, it makes all the sense in the world. It's just whether or not, you spend $17,000 now to move people versus whatever the maintenance cost would be to stay where you are for a little longer. But his board has voted unanimously to approve these expenses and to move.
Okay.
Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we need a motion? Or is this just an OPC?
The way it was explained to me is since we would be changing the infrastructure, adding improvements to the facility, that we would need the Board of Aldermen to approve us doing the
Changing the
phone
floor,
cabling,
those
the internet
kinds of things.
cabling and stuff, that we would
Yes.
need y'all's approval to be able to do that.
Make a motion to approve that?
All right, do you want to put based on whatever cost, or,
Based on OPC's admin moving cost that we see in our,
okay?
Now, I will say, looks like I added the wrong one to y'all that I sit here. The Coach Howell plexiglass at the front desk, that was not voted to be included in this, so that total cost there that shows $21,733, we would need to take $47,70 out of that, which I said is somewhere around 22, but the board did approve up to $20,000 of their money to go to the move.
I'll approve with that $20,000.
All right, and we had a second by Mark. Any other comments or questions? All right, with a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Quick question before
Thank
we
you,
move
Seth.
on. I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep Seth up here for just a second. It slipped by me. I've had somebody request that if there's possibility, I'm going back to our safety plan almost, if there's a possibility for us to break the walking times up and have some with mask and some without mask. I've just had that request and I'm bringing that before y'all. I've talked to Seth about it. I mean, you can do an hour with, an hour without. They've got it scheduled that, I don't know what time frame he's got, but you can
Yeah,
kinda
so-
alternate them or do morning and afternoon when we're.
Yeah, you know, if I told Rick that we have the ability to do whatever y'all decide to do, whether we would do morning hours, you could do the 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, with or without mask, and you could do the 1, 2, 3, 4 with or without mask, or we could alternate hours based on what y'all would like to see happen. It's just a situation of what y'all would like to see.
As you're walking around, I think Seth was telling me most of the time you're if you're on the inside lane to the outside lane, probably 12 feet. And if that's the
Yeah,
case.
I think that
I'm
if
not
we're
there.
gonna have that discussion, we should add it to the agenda.
Okay,
So we could discuss that at our next meeting, but I do think that we probably should add that to the agenda as a
Alright.
discussion item.
If you had more hours, it would help too. A lot of people like to walk on the weekends, and it would be nice if that track were open on the weekends. And if you're going to have time for mask and no mask, that would at least allow more total hours to manage that. So you might want to consider that.
Okay,
Okay,
we'll put that
thanks.
on our agenda for the
Absolutely.
next meeting. All right. First reading of a proposed ordinance for case 2704 to amend Articles 2, 3, 4, 5 of the City of Oxford Land Development Code. Ben?
Good evening, Happy New Year. We have.
Happy New Year, Presidente.
Thank you. We have we're proposing a few modifications. Several of them are relatively minor, but in Article 2, and y'all might remember about summertime, we made modifications to the medical use to make those, if you remember, it was more consistent with, size of a grocery store. Recently, we had a development that came through, and we discovered that there was a size requirement that was consistent with the old code. So we're proposing a modification to make that consistent, so it would allow 25,000 square feet in that district. Otherwise, beyond that, it would require a special exception. In Article 3, a modification to the development standards for the residential common interest development so that single-family detached buildings could be 10 feet apart, which would be consistent with some of the underlying zoning districts for single-family. And then we are proposing a new use. This one is a little bit more substantial, but it would be an event space or banquet and reception hall. We've had several people interested in this use. And we do kind of have a box that it fits in within a restaurant, but as we've discussed with some of these people, they're not necessarily looking to put in a restaurant. They would have caterers come in. So we started doing our research, and we found in other communities that they actually call this out as a separate use. So we started doing the research of what it would take. So we have it in here. It would be allowable by special use in our commercial districts, the rural center, TNB, suburban center, suburban corridor, urban center, urban corridor, and historic urban center when they're not adjacent to residentially zoned property. When they are adjacent to residentially zoned property, it would be a special exception. We did provide some standards. Parking plan would be required in the historic urban center. And then one point worth mentioning, because we did receive a comment prior to the Planning Commission, when adjacent to residential uses, we limited the quantity of people for outside activities to 30. And there was some concern because some functions, garden club, dinners, things like that, or lunches, they can get fairly large. So I did cross that out and moved it to 75 to allow for a little bit, especially with our limited hours that we already have when adjacent to residential uses.
Right.
That would provide a little bit more capacity, and then beyond that, I think they could request a variance to that number from the Planning Commission if it was necessary. As for Article 4, we already have a parking reduction, but we're proposing or the ability for a 25% reduction. The only add here would be for the instance of a non-residential use that's a mixed-use structure. So a mixed-use commercial development, we could have that waiver if necessary. And then lastly, in Article 5, we have we had a standard in there for some landscaping that, quite honestly, it was exceptionally difficult for people to meet. So we think that our standards that we already have, the other standards that we have, accomplish what we want to accomplish. So we've struck this language and just basically said we're going to landscape with trees and shrubs as the rest of the code requires. So
I think that's great. Does anybody have any questions about any of these?
okay,
I
and we'll have a
appreciate all
public
the
hearing
work
next
that's
meeting.
gone into it. This is just our first reading, so we will have a second reading and public hearing at our next meeting.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ben. Rihanna, consider a contract with Eagle Specialty for traffic signal maintenance for the period ending December 31st, 2021.
Yes, thank you. This is our contract with Mr. Larry Froner. He's done our maintenance for several years, and I would just request that we extend his contract for another year.
Motion made.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Consider the acceptance of the infrastructure in Evergreens Phase 1.
Yes, this is for Dillon Avenue in Evergreens Phase 1 off of Highway 314, and we have completed a final inspection. There are a few punch list items that remain, but they're minor in nature. The curb has been poured, so right now there's just some cleanup work, a little bit of sidewalk repair that has to be done. So I would recommend that you accept the water, sewer, and street infrastructure contingent on completion of the punch list items and the receipt of the bonds, which I've received notice from the bonding company today for the warranty bond and the performance bond, and that bond will include the final lift of pavement and some remaining sidewalk.
Make a motion to approve with staff recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Consider task order number 4 with Wagner Engineering related to the Oxford Regional Water Supply and Treatment Project.
Yes, this is so that we can do our engineering design for our water supply project. I call it the 592 project, so I put that in here just because when I'm speaking to you at times, I'll call it that, but that's the funding source.
That's what we got the $1.7 million from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yes, and so we're very excited to get this task order approved for Wagner to begin that design work and start that project.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Request permission to accept bids and authorize the disposal of surplus property in South Lamar Park. Thank you, Rihanna. Was thinking you were the next one too.
In November, you approved a resolution declaring a piece of property at Belk and South Lamar surplus. We advertised for sealed, we had the property appraised to make sure what the value of it was. We advertised for sealed bids. We only got one bid on the property. It was for $62,001, and it was from Andy Calicut. Based on the value of the appraisal, which was $62,000, we recommend we accept his bid and move forward with the sale of the property.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. And I would ask the board that you please consider an executive session.
Motion to approve considering executive session.